Growing fallout in Washington after a journalist was accidentally added to a group chat with highly sensitive plans about a U.S. military strike in Yemen.
The stunning report detailed by The Atlantic now spurring new concerns over protocol and national security. And for more on this story, let's bring in ABC Chief Global Affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz, who is in Washington, D.C. with the latest again on this story. Martha, always good to see you, but walk us through how something like this could even happen.
Well, it's not exactly putting the wrong address in an email. This was a signal chat between President Trump's top national security team. And Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic said on about March 11th, he received an invitation from someone called Mike Waltz, who happens to be the national security advisor. And Jeffrey Goldberg said he thought it was somehow a spoof. He accepted the invitation, and before he knew it, he was involved in a group chat called the Small Group Houthi PC, and that is a high-level senior administration officials group. And they are talking about the strikes on Yemen, the U.S. strikes on Yemen that happened earlier this month. A couple of days later, he hears from Pete Hegseth, and the National Security Communications said this was an actual, authentic conversation. Pete Hegseth says, we're going to start dropping bombs basically in 2 hours. Jeffrey Goldberg said he outlined targets that were going to be targeted, how they were going to be targeted, who was the target. The White House, of course, is now saying there were no war plans discussed. Pete Hegseth said that as well. But Jeffrey Goldberg said that is a lie. He saw those texts.
Can you just explain to us, is this a normal means of communication for this kind of sensitive information?
Well, I would just say it shouldn't be. And no one noticed that Jeffrey Goldberg was also on the chain. And I should also add that Jeffrey Goldberg did not go into detail about what was targeted and things like that, because he knew enough to say, I do not want to print things like that. But you really shouldn't be on Signal. There's presidential records that should be kept. Signal is an encrypted messaging center, but it could be hacked. And one of the participants, Steve Witkoff, was in Russia at the time, according to the timeline. So there's a lot of danger there. It simply shouldn't have happened. Military officials we have spoken to are just dumbfounded that anyone would discuss this kind of stuff on a Signal app, a commercial messaging app.
So, Martha, what does a breach like this expose about our national security?
Well, Jeffrey Goldberg said himself, he said, I think I just accidentally saw a huge national security problem here. The president has talked to a reporter in the last few hours saying he thinks it's just a glitch. And you know, Mike Waltz, who started the invitation, just made a simple mistake. But there were a lot of people on that. There were a lot of veterans on that. You know, Pete Hegseth is a veteran. J.D. Vance is a veteran. Mike Waltz is a veteran, so they know war plans really shouldn't be discussed.
What happens next? What's the fallout going to look like from this?
Well, you can imagine, Eva and DeMarco, that the Hill is aflame over this. They want investigation. Some Republicans are poo-pooing it as well and bashing the reporter, although this isn't a story that Jeffrey Goldberg went after. I mean, in many ways, they're lucky it was Jeffrey Goldberg and not some adversary or some diplomat that they actually texted this information to. But they do want some sort of investigation and many questions to be answered. And we assume that Jeffrey Goldberg still has those texts, although he said that Mike Waltz had them disappearing on his part of the app. We don't know what the others did after a week or so. So they may not be on his phone, but they're on Jeffrey Goldberg's.
This story is far from over. Martha Raddatz in Washington. Martha, thank you, and good to see you as always. We appreciate it.
You too.
Mm-hmm.